Welcome back, guys. Workshop Wednesday again. Today we're going to be talking about hammer-ons. You know, hammer-ons that are particularly used in Tool songs are a little different than most hammer-ons you typically hear. Hammer-ons are really just the opposite of pull-offs, right? Pull-offs where hammer-ons are just the other direction, right? So we strike the first note, and we hammer on to the second one without picking the string again, right? Now that seems simple enough. You'll see that in a bunch of different songs, not only just in Tool songs and all over. I mean, that's a very common technique to use when playing guitars. Hammer on and pull off. A combination called trilling, right? That was the other lesson we did. However, Adam Jones does a couple of different variations of hammer-ons that are very specific to Tool songs. You'll probably hear them in other ones, but they're very distinctive in Tool songs. You have the standard hammer-on, like the one I just showed you, right? Like, right, in H, let's say we have this one. Right, so we have that hammer-on variation and like the one you hear in H. We also have what I like to call the triplet hammer-on, which is basically the open string, landing on the first note, and then landing on the second note. So it sounds like this. Right? So basically that, like, let's say that comes actually at, let's say, the outro of the solo in the pot, right? Right? So that's just basically doing. You want to get that under your belt, right? This triplet. Right? You want to get that under your belt. You also want to try hammering on muted because it has a distinctive feel to it. Right? That also comes out in Rosetta Stoned, right? That sounds familiar. Where you basically, the Rosetta Stone one's a little different because he does a pull off on the last stroke. So then he alters it. Right? So that's another variation of it. But probably the one that makes the what I think is the best impact in a song when you're using hammer-ons is playing hammer-ons with chords. Right? So part of playing Tool songs is that you're playing in drop D. So you could pull off chords by striking these three strings and just planting your finger across the three strings, right? That's a 5 chord because you're getting the root, the 5, and the octave. So let's say I was doing a standard D chord, right? If I was doing it with the guitar in standard tuning, I would have to move this finger down one to get the root, the 5th, and the octave. But I'm about to do this exact same chord up here. It's going to have the same tonality to it, but it's going to be played different because of the drop D tuning. That's the advantage of playing in drop D tuning. Because now what I can do is I can now I can hammer on chords. You can't really do that when you're in standard tuning, right? So we have right, that's from Rosetta Stoned. We also have it in Jambi. Right, we have it there too. So if you're going to get into drilling and doing workshops on hammer-ons, you're going to want to probably use a metronome to start building up on some speed and strength, by the way, because when you're doing hammer-on chords, you're actually demanding a lot of strength from your hand. You're trying to grab 3 strings at the same time. I suggest you don't do this for a long period of time, maybe a couple of minutes, and build yourself up. Skip days in between. Don't just do this back to back. You can actually strain your forearm where your tendons are. So what you want to do then is go ahead and get a metronome. I have a metronome up here on the screen. I'm going to bring it up here now. You can just literally go online and grab this metronome. I'll put the link in the description so you can find it. If you don't have one, in your computer, or you don't want to download an app into your phone, I use this metronome when I sit here and I practice. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up. I'm going to start it at 60 BPM. So now what you want to do is basically create patterns based off that ticking pattern, right? So if I wanted to do the standard hammer on, which is right, so I can sit there and do that for a couple of minutes. Another thing you want to get into your ear is descending hammer-ons, because that's actually, it's an awkward feel, because this has a standard feel because the notes are ascending while you're, you know, going down the guitar as a natural progression would, right? But when you're doing this, that's not natural to your ear because the notes are ascending while you're descending the pattern, right? So now, obviously what you want to do, you could keep track of this. You could write this down, say, let's say week 1, you did 60 BPM for 2 minutes and you did these patterns. You also want to add in the triplet pattern. That's actually the outro solo from Fear Knocking. Okay, well, we'll get into that later. So you want to start, you could use a metronome, do that. You also can do it with the chords. Right? So there's different patterns that you can create to create different, you know, practice techniques. So let's say now I'm going to speed up the metronome. Really, to speed this up, you could just pick on the wheel here which one you want to go up to. So I'm going to put 80. So let me go ahead and stop this real quick. That's all it takes to stop it. Just click it in the middle. So I'm going to have that metronome in the description so you can pull it up and you can practice with it. That's actually a really helpful tool. It keeps you in line, helps you keep the rhythm while you're doing the hammer-ons, because the hammer-ons, although they sound sporadic and crazy, they're not. They're actually on rhythm. You know, a lot of what he's doing there is he's matching the percussive element of what Danny's playing, but he's, you know, with the guitar on top of it, right? Right? So you obviously do runs like that. You've heard that in other songs. Now, if you notice, most of the hammer-ons that I'm doing in whole steps. Right? Those notes come out of the D minor pentatonic, right? Because we have the C, D, G, A, C, D. But another couple of notes that are in the D minor pentatonic are the interval of D to F, which is a minor third. Right, so here's D minor pentatonic, D, F, G, A, C, D, right, the octave, pentatonic, 5 tones. Right, well, the reason I'm showing you that is because there actually is a hammer-on that is 1.5. steps, which is a minor third, right? Which is basically coming out of Vicarious. That part of it, that where the solo's coming, right? So you might want to practice that too, right? You could also do a practice hammer on run right here of the D minor pentatonic box, which is right. So you can use that riff to practice that too. So there's a bunch of variations of different hammer-on riffs that you could use to practice hammer-ons. What I suggest you do is find the ones that are particular to your ear. That's why I'm doing this in this channel, where basically if we're using Tool songs, which I think if you're here, you're probably a Tool fan and an Adam Jones fan like me. So I'm thinking that you could actually pick songs that you already know what they're supposed to sound like. So you're naturally going to lean towards the original sound of what you're trying to reproduce, right? And use that for practice. That's what kind of like makes practice a little fun, all right? So in the next lesson, I'm actually going to create a practice routine where I'm going to grab a couple of the Workshop Wednesdays, bring them together and make a 20-minute practice routine where you're going to be able to put these things together and just sit down and say, okay, today I'm going to do trilling, pull-offs, and hammer-ons. Or today I'm going to do, I don't know, unison bends, trilling, and pull-offs. And you could just do different combinations of these things so that you can have a practice routine that's particular to yourself. And you could also change it up yourself too. We're just going to keep doing this every week. I'm going to pick another skill and we're going to do something else new. All right. So I hope you're learning something here, man. If you are, please subscribe, leave me a comment, hit like, tell a friend, have other people join us here in this, maybe this interesting new way of learning guitar. Thanks for watching, man. Keep coming back.